Hello, I'm Stuart Eglin. I'm Director of NHS R&D Northwest. This is the second podcast series. In the first series, we interviewed people who are research leaders here in the northwest of England, and we called that the Research Champions. This series is called Edgewalkers because we're interviewing people who walk the edge of organisations, challenge the status quo, and are working towards improvement of the health system here in the northwest. I hope you enjoy the films.
I mean, I first started off as a pure scientist. I thought I was going to be a physicist. I was very interested in physics at A-level. I was interested in physics and philosophy. But the degree that I studied was sort of general sciences, and so I think I almost drifted into psychology while I was at university, and I found it the most fascinating of the sciences. And I liked the way in which you could apply... I think it appealed to me as a 19, 20-year-old to apply scientific understanding to the complex issue of why people behave in the way that they do. And I'm quite a rational person, so I liked the idea that you could start to make sense of why people behaved in the ways that they do using science. And then after university, I worked for a year as an assistant psychologist in the NHS, and then sort of drifted into clinical psychology. So it's a very conventional training process. Part of why I kind of liked it after I started working as a psychologist is one of my brothers has quite serious mental health problems, and I think I was quite interested in getting into trying to provide better sorts of services for people with those sorts of problems. I think I was very fortunate in very early on in my career. I did my PhD with Richard Bentel, who's quite a well-known clinical psychologist in the area of serious mental health problems. And so he and I, so over the next 20 years, we've been working very closely together and developing ideas, developing theories about how the human mind works, and then trying to do studies to investigate that, including therapeutic investigations about what we can do to help people who've got problems. So although it slightly galls me to have to say it, I think Richard has definitely been the most important influence in my life. And I think he and I think we were lucky to meet each other, because I think we think very similarly, and so we can bounce ideas off each other and move things forward a bit. I think we should question lots of things in life, but certainly in the field of mental health. I think psychiatry and medicine in the field of mental health has been chasing ghosts for years, and I think we should, instead of carrying on saying, well, we'll have to assume that the tenets of their logic are correct and we'll carry on doing things in the same old way that seems to hurt people, of course we should challenge things. And when we do challenge things, it seems pretty clear to me that at least some of the time we make life substantially better. Yeah, I've challenged people. Myself and Malcolm Adams, who's another clinical psychologist who's now sadly dead, we wrote to the then Health Minister, Lord Hunt, about 10 years ago now, to say that the two of us were willing to give evidence at a professional panel about the competences of clinical and other applied psychologists if the government were interested in moving from voluntary to statutory regulation. My then professional body, the British Psychological Society, actually formally wrote to me to tell me that this was not the Society's policy, but we did it anyway. And the government weren't quite as generous to me and Malcolm as possibly we thought they could have been, because it basically led to the statutory regulation of psychologists. So because we were willing to step out and say that we thought that psychologists should be regulated through a statutory body rather than by the professional body as a sort of old boys club, we think that's the right thing. We thought at the time it was the right thing. I'm very pleased that it's happened. it didn't go down well at the time. The British Psychological Society also, incidentally, advised me not to get involved in the reforms of the Mental Health Act, which I got heavily involved in, and I think produced a slightly better piece of legislation than otherwise would have been produced. Challenging other people? Well, I guess I challenge reductionist biomedical views of psychiatry all the time. I think people would regard me as a slightly challenging person.